I'm doing fantastic. How about you, Governor Newsom?
Do you know what a detransitioner is? Do you know Chloe Cole? At the age of 15, she got her breast removed and now regrets it because of gender-affirmative care.
How are you?
How about the Lodi woman? At 13, she got her breast removed. Until you're 18, you can't date until you're 18. You can go in a tanning salon, but young girls and young boys can get their body parts removed. Talk to me. Our duty. I'm an attorney. I send you letters. Thousands of people I represent. Kids who haven't been affirmed don't commit suicide.
Just a second, you're not that excited.
Kids commit suicide 19 times more after having their body parts removed.
Governor, parents have legitimate concerns about their kids being able to medically
Why
transition
don't
at
you
such
talk
a
to
young
us?
age. What do you have to say to those parents? What do you have to say?
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Ehline, and I am licensed in California and Texas to practice law. And I'm a parental rights and personal injury attorney. And sometimes I'm cruising around the internet and I'm looking at different things, trying to understand what's going on out there because the news is such a poor source of information. And I run across people who are advocates trying to help parents and kids. And I have a guy who I'm going to introduce in just one second, who I found, and I want to have him come on and talk. He's a young man and he's really motivated. He's really on fire to help kids and parents be able to sort of get their rights back from California, so to speak. But before I get into that, I just want to say, look, what I'm doing right now is a free service to the people of California and across the world to try and help people and especially parents understand their rights. And it has nothing to do with my work at Ehline Law Firm or anything else. It's just a free service. It's a non-commercial type of thing, and I'm just trying to get information out to help people understand their rights. So with that being said, I want to introduce Max, and I want Max to talk a little bit about himself and share his social media information with my viewers so you can sort of check him out and find out more about him. And I'll share all that stuff also under the description. But Max, just tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to help parents and kids.
Yeah, so I'm a kid who grew up in public school. Fortunately, this was before all of this stuff started happening with the gender ideology infiltrating the schools and teachers becoming radicalized, particularly by the teachers unions like the there's the National Education Association, which is full of teachers who are being radicalized. And so, I grew up in the public school system. A lot of people know that it's indoctrination through and throughout because it's being funded by the state and the state has certain agendas to push. But you know what? Regardless, I did my research. Okay. I was about 14, 15 years old. I was starting to wake up, I was starting to, browse on the internet. And sometimes I'd, rebuttal teachers if they said something that I knew was not historically factual or true. And so I just, was a really, I would say argumentative kid. And especially when COVID hit, that's when I really started to become active because, I knew that what they were doing wasn't right. And the teachers unions worked really heavily through COVID too, to keep the schools closed and whatnot. So education was a really big one for me. And this whole gender ideology issue, the recent pandemic we had, all these recent issues that we have been struggling with all tie into how we educate children. And so that's why I stepped up and I got involved. I started making posts on social media, sharing my disillusionment with others. Others hopped on board, agreed with me, supported me, and then it sort of went from there.
Well, that's good to know. And I'll let you share your social media information again. I want you to do that. But
sure.
On the screen here, I'm going to show my viewers, here's Max chasing down Gavin Newsom. This is a brave guy. California is a single party state. There is no opposition. This is like almost like being in communist China. You mess with California, that's a big deal because you don't have anybody on your side to really help you defend yourself in a lot of ways. So anyways, I'm going to be showing that. Everybody take a look at this guy. Check him out. He's chasing down Newsom. That tells you everything you need to know. This is a brave young man. So by the way, what is your social media contact? Twitter, Insta, YouTube, whatever you got.
Yeah, so I call myself Outrage Teen, and this is on every platform. This would be TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I mean, you name it. Facebook, I'm Max Bonilla. You could see my screen display name here. Find me there on Facebook. And pretty much what I do is I post all the same videos pretty much on the platforms anyway. So it's whichever one you want to follow, whichever one wants to work for you. And I try to get on TikTok because that's where the younger people are at. So we're trying to engage all age group all age demographics. So just to maximize the reach and to show people that there's a lot of bad stuff going on that they really need to know about.
Well, yeah, obviously we're not going to be able to cover everything. We only have about 20 minutes, but I did
Right.
want to point out there that it's a lot of work to build these social media channels, and guys like Max are always getting shadow banned and censored by big tech because they do not like you messing with their ad spend. And the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industrial complex is a big time donor. And there's a lot of money involved in these transgender care surgeries, especially when they get covered under Obamacare, because they have been declared mental illnesses, which are now subject
Yeah.
to tax funded everything under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So basically what you're saying is government intervention in your life, overreach, sort of inspired you to want to help parents and kids more. Is that sort of a fair statement?
Oh, that's a very fair statement. And then I wanted to hit on the point about the shadow banning. I mean, my governor, Newsom, actually got a ton of money from no bid contracts that he struck with Facebook. So maybe he's having Facebook censor me. Meta owns Instagram, Facebook, and those are platforms that I have a pretty big reach on. So, why not try to censor it?
Right. And there's tools that you can look at to see in some cases if you've been shadow banned. And I've looked at some of your stuff and I've noticed some patterns as well, that it looks like a lot of your normal audience is being deprived of being able to see you. And so that's been the big problem that I've had, Max, is that the administrative state always wants to create the appearance of consensus, because throughout the public school system and even now in popular culture, there's been a misconception that if everyone's doing it, it's a good thing. Whereas when I grew up, I had good parents. They said, if everyone jumped off a cliff, would you be doing that? But that's not how it is in California. Instead, in California, well, everyone else is jumping off the cliff, so that must mean it's good. And so that's kind of like where the narrative, right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. You're right. And to some degree, I will tell you there is a small resistance brewing in California, that it doesn't just involve myself. I mean, this is at like the school board level, where the school boards are actually trying to let parents know if their kids are experiencing, the so-called gender dysphoria, so to speak. And then the state is pushing back against that. And then also, the Biden administration would likely be pushing back against that as well, because Biden actually said that it was a sin not to transition your child.
Well, I mean, look, I understand their position, but I always look at the money as well. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Max, but I'm pretty sure it's close to $100,000 a year a doctor can get on one of these kids, especially if they can start them young on the hormones, because then there's all these side effects that can be treated with other drugs and medication and counseling. Are you aware of that? Or
Well, I think, I heard, Erin Friday, she's a wonderful attorney, lawyer. She's been fighting this on all fronts. And she had mentioned that actually for a child, like just overall, how much the industry is generating is like over $1 million for each one of those children.
per year or over their lifetime? I'm trying to get the numbers because I can't get accurate figures anywhere.
Well, it'd probably be most likely over their lifetime. That would make the most sense. But either way, $1 million per child is a lot. And that's why they're trying to get each child sort of like into the system, because, it's like a form of residual income almost, if you want to put it bluntly. Just it's hard, good. And then the worst part is that they can't go back and undo it.
Right. So what you're saying is that doctors potentially could be receiving millions of dollars if they can convince children that they're not the sex that they were born with. Because basically there is I'm just telling you as a lawyer, there's a conflict of interest here. If I'm a doctor and I know I can get tax funding through Obamacare or some California healthcare plan that's tax funded, you better damn well believe that, with how hard it is to make money being a doctor, I think there are a lot of doctors who are going to take that option. Hey, the school teacher said that this guy's really a girl, they should know. They went to a SC. I mean, if you went to USC, that qualifies you to know everything on the planet, because right,
Yeah.
you're credentialed as a good progressive, right? So
Right.
that's kind of what you're dealing with, Max.
Right. It is a violation. It is a violation of their Hippocratic oath, without a doubt, because their goal should be to not harm the patient and put the patient first in everything. But it's like, again, it's like you said, for a doctor, it's hard to make it's hard to make money. They may get a couple $100,000 a year in terms of a salary, kind of like most of our politicians in Washington. But then once you have these other third parties, these external sources trying to fund them, like to pass certain bills, well, the doctor is going to become corrupted in the same fashion. And if the doctor sees an opportunity for money, they're going to take it. And that means that they will end up harming their patient, just like our politicians may take some outside lobby money. And that may in turn cause them to pass a law that would harm the American people. So, I mean, it kind of works the same way.
Right. And then, so, everything we've talked about so far, Max, has been sort of based on us assuming our audience knows what we're talking about. But let me just break it down really quick.
Sure.
So what's going on, guys, is ever since Biden took office, there's been a big push for gender affirming care. And the courts have found that gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. That means that it's now open to lots and lots of money. We know that in California, the medical unions, like the nursing unions, the doctors unions, they donate millions to the Democrat Party. And in return, laws and things get passed that help the doctors make money. And that's kind of how it works. That's how sausage is made. So what's happened in California is there's been this big push where, boys are being taken from their parents, or during a divorce, usually it's the mother who will take the child and try to start them on hormones and move them towards genital mutilation. Now, to be fair, the left and the Democrats who support this say that, well, there's no genital mutilation until like after 15 or 16. But then, Max, that's why I wanted to have you on, because I've seen examples myself, because I get calls about this, where it happens a lot younger. And endocrine systems are destroyed on little girls because they're jacking them up with testosterone cypionate and all these hardcore male testosterone synthetic drugs, shutting down their negative feedback loop, just ruining them. And this is happening much younger. So I wanted to talk to you about that. But so that's kind of what's going on. And then these kids are coming back as adults, and then they're suing, and they're going after these doctors, and they're winning. On your social media account, that Scott Wiener was behind that bill that made it easier for sodomy, for men to commit sodomy against little boys.
Correct. Actually, I'll tell you this, a lot of the laws on the books, for California prior to that, really criminalized sodomy. I mean, the laws in California are heavier on sodomy than a lot of people think. But Mr. Wiener wanted to change that and say, well, if you have a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old, for example, you can't put that 24-year-old on the sex offender registry if the sex was consensual. But here's the problem. The predator could say it was consensual. So at that point, it was only allegedly consensual. Perhaps the children could be so easily adolescents can be so easily coerced. I mean, I understand that he put a limit maybe on it of 14 and older, but still that 14 to 17 range, they're still developing their minds, so they don't really have an understanding of the world. And then also when it's this big for them to even think of fighting back, or especially women. Women could be used in this. Young boys could be used in this. So it just really isn't a good piece of legislation. And it really makes you question the character of Scott Wiener, just as a legislator and as a person.
Well, to be fair, all the fact-checking sites have all decided that what you're saying isn't true, because they went to Scott Wiener's campaign website, and his campaign team and his campaign website says that everything you said isn't true. So clearly Snopes and all the fact-checking sites are correct, because they got their information from the guy pushing for this legislation. But I do want to throw something out at you, because I do want to try to be as neutral as possible here. His given reasoning behind doing that was to make it equal with women, because he said that it discriminated against gay men.
Right. That's what he was saying.
So rather than increase the penalties for both, which is what we used to do. Like when I was growing up, you would have to make it equal, you'd increase
You'd make it the same
for both.
Yeah.
Right. So he just dropped the penalties down to make it easier for guys to go have sex with little boys. And by the way, judges now,
Right.
California judges get to decide whether or not one of these guys goes on the sex registry. This is important because one of these dudes, if he's not on the sex registry, he could be trying to get jobs doing daycare, anything he wants. There's no way to find it. Tell me how you feel about that, Max.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real way to find out that he's a creeper. It very much narrows the way by which you can be put on the sex offender registry, and it's very concerning. And you said Snopes fact checked this, PolitiFact fact checked this. I would have you know that Snopes has direct ties to the DNC and to George Soros. Snopes is being funded by George Soros. I mean, Sarah, I mean, you can look this up. I mean, this is all public information. It's just that people want to live in denial instead of actually looking at information that can easily be found on the internet. So, of course, the DNC will support Scott Wiener in his efforts because the DNC is being funded by the big pharma lobbies that want to push these so-called gender-affirming surgeries.
Well, wow. I mean, it's shocking to me. You sound like somebody who's been around a lot longer, but everything you said resonates with from what I'm hearing from other parents and people that are fleeing California. Mm-hmm. I mean, small businesses, people with children are absolutely fleeing California if they love their kids. And this is the reason why. This is absolutely devastating to hear this. So now I got a question for you. Why do you think public school teachers want to keep transitioning secret from parents?
Well, they make money off of it. Like I said, the teachers unions, they're definitely making big money off of this. They're in cahoots. The NEA they're in cahoots with these, big pharma lobbies, because what they do is they have the counselor that's weaponized and the counselor that says, well, I think this might be a good idea for the child. And especially now in California, they've provided mental health funding where the counselor provides antidepressants when the kid says that, they're depressed or something. And I wouldn't doubt if the teachers union try to petition the government to include hormone therapy as a part of that program, so to speak. So what they're doing is they're trying to funnel the ideology through the school so that the kids are so heavily brainwashed that they think they need the surgery, and that the teachers union is making money off of that to be able to pass that agenda. Because you think of all the pornographic, heavily explicit
teachers. And so that's kind of what we're left with here, Max, is, how do we deal with this when these teachers seem to be pushing this on the kids?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually aware of cases with parents, specifically more fathers who have had issues getting their children back. Either they've had temporary orders filed against them to continue to stay away from their child or to not have any involvement in their child's life in any form, or, they were given cease and desist orders or restraining orders, and, they're not allowed to go near their children because, judges have given custody to the parent that has chosen to affirm either the child as non-binary or put them in dresses or affirm them as the opposite gender. I actually know two fathers who are going through situations like these, specifically in the state of California.
So you're telling me that this is going on right now?
This is going on right now. Yes, that is correct. I know a father with a child who's 3 years old. Mom's actually trying to say that the 3-year-old child is non-binary.
And then so if the dad doesn't go along with it, doesn't that mean that that's violent and therefore the dad needs to be removed from the child? Isn't that the philosophy? It's violent if you don't affirm the dysphoria, right?
Well, I'll tell you the good thing is the philosophy hasn't been implemented into law as of yet fully. They were trying to do that this year in the legislature. Newsom vetoed the bill. But essentially, I think this is the philosophy of many of these judges, because at the end of the day, these judges are appointed by Governor Newsom. A lot of these judges that are in the state courts and whatnot, they're appointed by the governor. And so obviously, if I'm a smart governor or if I'm a smart politician, I'm going to appoint judges that actually align with my ideology. not judges that don't align with my ideology. I mean, you think of why did Trump appoint, Amy Coney Barrett or Justice Kavanaugh? That's because they're obviously more conservative, right? That is a smart move to make. So the logic is, even here in California with the very liberal progressive politics, you'd want to do the same thing to be able to get that agenda across.
That makes perfectly good sense. So kind of one of the things you're sort of suggesting is that, well, the judges are basically just a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party. And then schools are making an enormous amount of money by getting these school counselors,
right,
who are sort of brainwashed at the UC system to push like the BLM, Antifa thing, rainbow flag sort of thing going. You do the same thing they were doing at the college campus, but now they're counselors and they're counseling your children to do, right, for 8 hours or however many hours a day they have.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. So teachers are knowing about this identity. They're calling them by certain pronouns, or they're being asked to call them by certain pronouns and not discriminate by the school or the administration. If they refuse to, they're fired. I mean, I actually know a teacher who refused to let males in the female bathrooms, females in the male bathrooms, refused to call them by their preferred pronouns, and was fired over the issue because in the state of California, AB 2166 was signed into law by Jerry Brown. You have to let a certain gender access the opposite gender's bathroom and vice versa. And then also you have to call them by their preferred pronouns, because if not, it's looked at as a form of discrimination. So they are pushing this in schools. And like you said before, their logic is, oh, well, if they're 15, they're not getting mutilated till they're 15. That's like me saying, well, children, at least they're not chain smoking until they're 15. At least they're not allowed to get drunk until they're 15, So, I mean, these are still bad things. So anyways, it's a big mess in this state. And that's what people like me, you have a small resistance building up. We're trying to fix things.
But hold on a minute. I heard that if you don't let men share the restroom with little girls, that you're racist. So I just want to make sure that I don't want to ruin anything for anyone, but like if a guy wants to go like share the restroom with my daughter,
mm-hmm.
I mean, there's going to be some problems,
Well, exactly. Well, I'd gladly accept that title if it prevents my daughter from being sexually assaulted. I mean, you look at, there's a sign that says, if you belong in this bathroom, it's the male sign, and you use this bathroom, it's the female sign. Then you'll be using this bathroom, and it's the little disabled wheelchair sign. Every father should operate off of that philosophy at this point, but they are trying to emasculate men through and through to make sure that fathers don't take on that role of protecting their daughters and protecting their wives and protecting their families.
Well, Max, I'm hearing a lot of this stuff from a lot of people, and I'm just trying to get both sides out, because so far everything you hear on the news pretty much is pro whatever Newsom's doing. There's really nothing like out there for regular people, except for what I've seen Musk doing on Twitter with you and a couple other people. So listen, I just want to extend this invitation, because we're at like 23 minutes now, and I know you got to go, to have you come back and finish off, and then to the public, help me find someone like one of these blue hair guys or girls who supports this stuff, so I can have them come on and debate with Max, because I really just want to get both sides of the story. I mean, you guys can decide what you want to do. I'm not going to sit there and judge anybody. I want to hear the doctrine. I want to hear the doctrine of both sides. From my perspective, logic-based thought process, reason and deduction, that makes more sense to me than an emotion-based plea to stupidity. But wherever the chips may fall, I would love to have someone come on and debate you. And I would also would like to have some of these people that you mentioned to come on and just talk to me. I want to get their stories out, because the story you get from the news media, the for-profit news media, who stands to make advertising money from companies pushing products like testosterone for children, they're not going to give you the full story, because it's a for-profit system.